Hello and welcome to the United Devil channel with me, JB, on this Saturday. I think it's Saturday. It is 23rd of August 2025. I hope we're all doing really well in whatever we're doing. Hopefully most of us are not in work today. It's a Saturday. It's a weekend of football, so I hope we're all doing really well. Let me know how you spent your Friday night, what you were up to. Friday, did you go out? What did you do? Did you have some fun? Obviously, keep it nice and friendly. This is a family PC show. Of course it is. So, just before, obviously, I start off with this all the time. If you're going to get into the chat, obviously be as respectful as you possibly can. Scott, legend of the chat. Scott, I'll big you up today with the Stiller stuff, as you did mention that yesterday, so we can talk about Stiller stuff. We talk about Lammens, talk about all the bits and bobs in the thumbnail. Scott, I hope your FC 25 tournament went well yesterday, my friend. Hope you absolutely smashed it out of the park. Agent Scott is in the chat as we speak. So I think this morning, we may go over some of the stuff that we spoke about yesterday and the day before, because one of the things I will say about this channel, I think that we do really, really well, is that we tend to talk about stuff. So we logically talk about stuff, and then what tends to happen is that it then happens. And other channels that are bigger than ours then tend to cover it. I know, but we are pretty good here. And that's not necessarily just me, by the way. This is the community. This is the community that we've built here. Full of extremely intelligent, bright people who come on here with different names. Stiller, for example, Agume, Lammens. We've been talking about these players for probably for the best part of 2 months. I generally think sometimes that the mainstream then come onto sites like this, and along with the club, I'm joking, of course, and try and steal our idea. So I think we'll start off this morning. We can come on to Lammens in a bit, because I think we all know that one's going to get done. And we've got the Garnacho, Napoli, Antony stuff has started to come out today, and where we generally think that we are now. There's a young man in the chat called Scott, Agent Scott, and he put it into the chat, and we were talking about this, how basically Stiller, and when I was coming out of it, we were talking to Stiller. Apparently Stiller's agents were over here, and we were talking to them, and this was coming from people like an Indicator. I saw something from Fabrizio and some other bits and pieces. What's Scott saying? We made it to the semi-finals and got beat from my own doing. Was trying to kill a ball because I was down by 1 at half-time. Was trying to rush my plays. Game ended 4-3. Scott, it happens to the best of us, mate. No, I wish I was that good at football games. I mean, I go back to FIFA on the Mega Drive all the way through Pro. I've played so many football games like over the years. I've never been particularly good at any of them, but I do love me a Pro Evo, but I don't really have time these days. And I think if I even tried to play FIFA online, I think I'd get absolutely smashed. I think it'd be quite funny to see, to be honest with you. But yeah, I do take my hat off to being a computer game nerd for many years. I do take my hat off to you online guys, who are obviously passionate as well, which is nice to see that it's now become a sport after playing many hours on the old PlayStation back in the day. Ifran, is United target Onana from Aston Villa? I'm not hearing anything right now on that. Is that just a random question? Or have you heard something? Because I've not really heard anything on that one, but happy to bring that into the show. One of the things that I will say that we do here, and I think we do it quite well, is that I'm not a dictator of the chat. this community has been built on conversation. This community is built on intelligent conversation, and it's not just me saying it just for saying its sake. This is what we do in here. We talk about stuff. We logically go through it, and we talk it out. So Jarwin, another legend of the chat. I like my Football Manager, FIFA, not realistic. Back in the day, I used to love a bit of I played. I can't remember what it's called. Premier League Manager. What was it called? LMA Manager. All on the PlayStation. Or my favourite one was Championship Manager on the Xbox. So you had the red one and the green one. Those were for me were the epitome of management games. Absolutely loved them. All I know is one in, one out when Lammens comes in. Exactly, Scott. Exactly, my friend. So I'm going to big up Scott for this one. This is what I love about this community, is that sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, and what I will always do is I'll give you my logical opinion on different things. Doesn't mean that I'm always right. So, for example, Shesko, mean someone else called it, remain calm, and we were all over that deal. But a lot of the time, I'm wrong, or a lot of the time, I just report the news. And then we go into the community, like people like Scott, who come in and they give us information, and they are spot on. So Scott yesterday come into the chat, and even when I was talking about Stiller, he's come on and said, look, this is not going to happen. Plenty of goals been all over this, even though Indicator and a lot of, for me, Indicator, I'm quite kind of new to them. A lot of people think they're quite good. A lot of people think they talk a load of nonsense. And they were reporting that, the agent has come into England to talk to the club, etc. Now, Scott come in with a Plenty goal, and then with Fabrizio basically saying that this is not happening. Welcome, Weakfoot. I hope you're doing really, really well. A friend says, me to no to United. Any chance? No, I can't see it right now. But we can come on to that as well. So just hold a pin in that for a second, and we can talk about that as well, because I think that's a really important point to when we're thinking about Stiller and just kind of talking about that point. So Stiller, Scott, I think Scott was absolutely spot on with this one. So Indicators reporting that we've had talks, etc. Now both Fabrizio, and sometimes these smaller outlets do get things right. You're never necessarily going to know, and they're never going to come out and say, the truth about the sources and things like that they get. Week says, I'm well. Long time I couldn't tune in and be able to travel elsewhere for week 4. I hope everything's okay, my friend, and I hope the emergency is not too bad, my friend. So I'm just glad that you're here, and hope everything and everybody is safe on your side, my friend. So it transpires that Indicator, they're basically talking out their back end. So according to Plenty Goal, according to Agent Scott on here, who's been spot on for me, is that United are in really any talks for this player. Now, Fabrizio's basically come on and has backed that up. So Plenty Goal, he's very, very good. Sky Sports, I think, he's tier 1 in the Bundesliga. Very, very good, very close. Was spot on Shesko as well, and he's basically come out and said that we're nowhere near it. There are no talks involved here. Now, again, when I did the show, and then I sit back and you logically think about this, and there's another part I'm going to bring up, and I'm going to keep on bringing this up because I think people have missed it, and I didn't when it happened, because it's kind of been with me for quite some time. So Plenty Goal and both Romano are basically saying that Stiller is not on the cards at all. Now that does make sense. That does make logical sense. And as we've been saying on here now, is that as the window progresses, there's 7-8 days left of this window. Stiller has a 36.5 million release clause in the contract. Stuttgart at any time can basically buy that out for 2 million. So there's an added complication to that deal. Number one, Stuttgart, of course, what are they going to do? It's so close to this window now, and like we found many windows for the last 10 years or so, is that when you start to buy players at this time in a window, their price goes up 50%, 25%, because the selling club then pretty much has to go and replace that player. So this is going to be a really difficult to do. Now, any other player that we think about in terms of a CM position right now for what we want is we have to think about a couple of things. Number one, how difficult will it be to do? Are these players surplus to requirements at their clubs? Probably not. And the CM position that we're looking for is a very specialist position, and there are not many of those there now. So we've got 7 days for both us to do the deal and then for the sending club to then do a deal. So this is why right now for me, with the positions that we are looking at, hence the title is one more and done. For me, I don't see how a CM comes in now. And this has been out there for quite some time now, I think. As Scott says, the price goes up because they have less time. Exactly that, Scott. That's exactly it. Exactly. Now, this is why when we come to the end of the window, or we panic buy and we end up paying stupid money for players, the Casemiro deal, we got absolutely destroyed on that. A Gume, like has been mentioned. Now, as much as I think I would like these players, if we were going to move on these players, I think we would have moved by now. So this is what I'm. There is a bit of hope that remains out there, but for me right now, I think that we don't get a centre midfielder. I think we are going to push that position down the road. I think right now we're going to move that position, and then I'll tell you for why that makes sense to me of what has been said weeks and weeks ago. Tensu says we will go for Camavinga if it's still impossible. Tensu, welcome to the chat, my friend, legend of the chat. I don't think we will go for Camavinga, my friend. If we do, then it's another panic buy. For me, Camavinga for me is that deal that you do when you panic. Like Real Madrid clearly want to get rid of him. I think Camavinga has definitely been put out there as a come and get me. They basically did it with the Casemiro deal, and I would not be happy with a Camavinga deal. I think he's become injury prone. I don't even know how old he is. How old is Camavinga now? Let's check how old he is. Camavinga is. Let's have a little look. Camavinga he's 22 years old. Interesting. So I thought Camavinga was a little bit older than that. Camavinga's an interesting one for me. I worry. The reason why I worry about him is because the red flag for me is, why would Real? He's 22 years old. No, a year older than he's coming up for 23. So he'll be 23. So he's still quite a young player. So it worries me why, when you've got a player like that who could be in your midfield for the next 10 years, why Real Madrid would want to get rid of him. Is it because they know something that we don't know? We've been stung before, so once bitten, twice shy. I'm under the impression that I would stay away from Camavinga, just because, from what I know, I like the player, but he just seems really injury prone. Now that just could be the optics that I hear and see. Maybe I'm wrong on that one, but for me, it's a swerve from me right now. But I completely understand why United would do this deal, because it's a typical United old school deal to do. These are the deals we've done, but I want to see us break the cycle from these sorts of deals, because it's what we've always done before. Let's go back to the chat for a second. The price exactly. I'm not happy about Jim in the transfer market. Look at Sunderland have 11 new players. Efrain, we will get on. I think towards the end of the window, what we'll do is we'll talk about. So we'll have a show, and I'm not trying to talk that down. I think you're making a fantastic point. I think that will make a really good show for us just to talk about signings, how we think about the window. You know, some people think it's a 9 just because of the signings that we do. I've got another opinion on it based on the whole window. It can't just be based on the players in, players out. And I think we need to be realistic and actually judge Ineos on the whole of the window. So I think that's a really good suggestion. But in essence, I agree with you. I think we need to have an adult and logical conversation around that and come to a conclusion and see what we all think about that. Scott says we'll end up panic buying and paying well over the odds for a player. What's not worth X amount of money? Exactly, Scott. Exactly. Can we not panic buy Valverde? He would, yeah. I mean, he'd be the one. No stop go for Real Madrid. He's never fit to play. So, Stiller for me is the one that, you know, am I disappointed? Yes. But I'm not necessarily disappointed that we didn't get this particular player. I'm disappointed that for me, as of now, I think a CM is off of the table. Now, why does this logically make sense to me? So, and I've said this numerous times now, what I should do is I need to get somebody to basically go through all of my videos and clip me up saying this stuff, and clip me up also as well, repeating what basically the chat says, because the chat comes out with so much good stuff that I wished I could clip it up as I read it. So a couple of weeks ago, so if you know anything, so Ornstein, so Fabrizio and Ornstein are basically the main guys, right? Those two are the main guys, and whenever they say stuff, you know, they get stuff from the club. Now, Romano is his own guy. You know, United go to him because of the following that he's got, and he's a respectable guy. But he's not really close to the club. Now, David Ornstein, respect to David Ornstein. This is not a dig at Ornstein. You know, he does what he does, and he does it really, really well. But he is a mouthpiece for the club. Now, whenever he says stuff, it's come from the club. Now, a couple of weeks ago, there was an interview with him, and I'm gonna have to find it. And he basically says, and I'm gonna have to find the clip and then play it. What David Ornstein says is that United, big up to Ben Jacobs, he's fantastic. Yeah, no, he has. Ben's really good as well. Actually, he's got better and better and better. Actually, I like him a lot. You know, I like how he speaks. You know, he speaks extremely well. You know, he was great on the Qatar stuff as well. So I really like him as well. But the particular thing for me with Ornstein has been, there was an interview on a podcast a couple of weeks ago where he basically made these 2 points. Is that number one, United feel that they're happy with their business that they've done. So I don't know if that's basically the hierarchy of the club, the football side of it. I shouldn't imagine Amorim is very happy with that at present. And also, and this is probably the most interesting part of it, he basically says that United feel that they may not do any more business in the window, and any signings they don't make, they'll wait until the next window. And that, for me, at the time, I said it and I thought that was a very interesting point, but then I kind of parked it to the side because we were looking at different signings. But as the weeks have progressed, you know, if you look back, and I think sometimes our memories are quite short, and we get caught up in big deals. Stiller, we get caught up in all these massive deals, and actually the clues are already there as to what it is that what we're trying to do. Now, there is so many things out there, and there have been things that have been reported from so many different others, from Simon Stone. Exactly, Scott. So we never do business in the January window. And we're not going to do. So basically what that means is that we are kicking this to next season. And this was said weeks and weeks ago. So I think this has been missed. I think whilst other creators out there, and I'm not taking a dig at them, I know how hard it is to to come on and talk about different stuff every single day. Okay, but I try not to do things for clicks. 100% not, right? And Scott says, and we wasted 2.5 weeks on the exactly. So I genuinely believe a lot of this has just been a bunch of spin, because why would you negotiate with a Brighton for 2.5 weeks if you're gonna then offer 55 million? Historically, Casido, the feelers were already put out there, and you were told about Casido was going to be was 115 million. Declan Rice, etc. Those sorts of players are in the region of like 100 million. I think we purposefully wasted time. I'm not saying that the football side and Amarin purposefully did that, because they don't negotiate the deals. But I believe we've wasted a load of time on this window, and we can talk about the window stuff, and I will bring these points up then. But I think that we've purposefully known that we've got X amount of money. We probably have known that we're not going to sign or sell players. So how do we plan out this window? And I think we were forced into Šeško. I think we had to. And then I think we've got another 6 weeks left in this window. We need to do something, or need to be seen that we're doing something. And this is what we've done. I think we've wasted time. I think, according to Ornstein, if you listen to that interview, it's all there for you. It's all there. And I think this has been foreseen weeks and weeks ago, and we've been told. And I think Ornstein sort of covered himself a bit there. So I think this has been the plan the whole way through. So I think this is what they've done very, very well is, I think they've spun this fan base around, because there are deals to do, centre midfielders to do. Agume is there for 30 million. Like, why wouldn't you do that? That's another body in the midfield for a good price. So I think that CM is done. I don't think we do a deal. I think anybody else out there now is talking about Anana, and I get it. Efran says the only player I will pay more than 85 is Anana from Villa. Efran, I disagree, my friend. Obviously, you're entitled to your opinion, but 85 million for me he is not the one for that money, my friend. He for me, definitely not. But we don't do another sign. So I think Lammens is going to be our last signing. I think that we'll flirt around different players, but I think with 6-7 days to go, and bearing in mind we've loaned one single player out, it's all going to be focused on getting these players out. So Joel says, we get this keeper. It's an 8 out of 10 window for me. Šeško, Cunha and Burma are game changers, so that's why I rate them 7 out of 10. And just getting those 3 players. Scott says, and we wasted 2 weeks exactly. Joel, I do not say we wasted. The club tried to get almost impossible. Scott says, I disagree with you, Joel. We have bought 3 players and sold none. When we get a keeper, it's a max 6 at best, because we still have the deadwood at the club. I'll put my opinion in here, and of course, I respect you guys' opinion, because we all look at football in a different way. Now, I'm going to say something controversial here. When I look at a transfer window, I look at it end to end, right? I look at the players that we've bought, I look at the players that we've sold. I look at the pre-season. I look at, what are the players here for the pre-season? What is the state of the team? Now, if you look at the signings that we've made in positions, now I would give that, a good solid 8 out of 10. Now, the reason why I would give the signings an 8 out of 10 is, if we get Lammens in, is he first choice? No. But is he potentially a good keeper? Yes. So that's a good piece, right? I mark it down because I don't think we needed 2 number 10s. I think we needed a centre midfielder and a number 10. Bruno could have been the other number 10. So for me, the balance isn't there. Shesko, fine, but we've not got the choices that Amrin wanted for the first choices. But the players that we've sold, it can't be argued. We've gone and got one of the up and coming strikers that potentially could be, a European star. We've gone and got probably the 2 best number 10s in the Premier League. I get that. So, you can argue, and then Lammens comes in, potentially that's an 8. But where you've got to mark it down for this window, these players went in for pre-season, one player was in for pre-season. It's not good enough. We still have the same team behind pretty much these players, which is we finished 15th. You've got to knock it down for that. Pre-season wasn't great. Pre-season wasn't brilliant. We had, and then our players, the players that we brought in, one of them played. We had no striker. You've got Luke Shaw. You've got Luke Shaw in the team as well, who, in my opinion, should have gone. You just should not be here. We've loaned a single player. We've not sold any players. We've got this bomb squad in. We're probably not going to make a single sale in this window. So for me, this window is a 5. Is a maximum right now of a 5 out of 10. Now, I don't think we can save this whole window. I think right now with no CM, you've got to think about this, in my opinion. And again, for example, the chat are saying, we loaned out Gore, Wheatley, Collier, 9 from the under 21s. So, I agree, Joel, that we've probably done more than we think. But those players going out on loan, that's great. But how does that impact the first team? That's not going to push us up to Champions League. Now, yet, fine, I get these players, 100%, these players are for the future of the club. But as we've spoken about, football is one of those things where if you plan for the future and you don't look at now, normally I live by a thing which says, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. Okay. Long-termism, I think, is really important. When you're thinking about different aspects of life, sometimes things have to be done now. Sometimes things have to be done in the future. Those loan players are great, but imagine if we'd have had the worst season. And what I mean by we finished 15th. Imagine if we'd have gone down last season. We were never going to go down. So these players could have been on loan, but they would have been coming back into a side not in the Premier League. So I completely get that, and that's one part, and it does bring in cash. But we have to look at the here and now. And I appreciate, Joe, that you look at football in a different way to me. I have to look at the entire window, and I can't just go, we've loaned some players out, which is great. That is some cash in, that's experiencing. So we're building for the future. I get that, and I think that is a plus point for a window. I get that completely. But if we've been led to believe that we need to sell to buy, and we're playing players, Casemiro still here on 350k, Hojlund is still here, and we don't want him here. Different. Antony is still here, hasn't played. He's not going to play on 250k. We've got a player who's wearing Aston Villa shirts. He's worth 60 million. People are offering us 25 million for him. Sancho's still here and in 350k a week. Those 4 players, and the fact that Rashford is technically still a player as well. Between those players, the amount of money paid could potentially get into the club, and the amount of money paid out for these players, the loans and that sort of stuff pales into comparison. Also, the impact of the team now. So I completely agree with you that Ineos and the football side, I think, have been really good in the future planning stuff. The fact that the Carrington stuff, for me, that's a plus point. The fact that that's been done, You know, these are all things that are really, really important. But the most important thing is this playing squad right now. And for me, when I look at a window, we could talk about this in depth at some point as well. Right now, I probably need to go and have another think about this and come in with probably more of a well thought out opinion on this. But for me, as it stands, the window is a 5. But again, I think we should do a show on that and we can all talk about that. So Joel, let's go back to what you're saying there. Antony, so let's go back to this bomb squad as it was. Now, I don't class Rasmus in the bomb squad, but and I'll read you the Fabrizio stuff as well. So Fabrizio basically saying 11 hours ago, so understand Napoli are now advancing in talks with Hojlund. Positive talks today with Hojlund and his camp about contract terms and project for the long term. United are informed about talks and ready to get the deal done if Hojlund and Napoli agree terms. So Fabrizio, I now think that Napoli is probably the place to go for him. I think, as we spoke about yesterday, for him, I think this will be a really good deal. I will just check as we are talking about this, because what tends to happen is that stuff comes out as I'm talking or going out there. See what's going on. That we have found a club for 12 players is good business, but the bomb squad are a problem when Garnacho turns down teams like Munich. Kind of explains the problem. He stays. Yeah. I mean, I think it's easier to get to loan out players. You know, when we're talking about 12 players, I get it. But these are youth players. You know, they'll literally go for a packet of crisps, and that's not to dismiss your opinion at all. But I don't really count loan players going out, these young players going out as loan, as business well done, because these lower league clubs, they're always going to be a market for loan players, particularly these young players. So I think those are the low-hanging fruit, the really easy deals to do. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it still has to get done, right? I get that. But the good business for me, the proper business, is getting rid of these players. So Højlund, for me, I'm not going to class him as the bomb squad. You know, for me, Højlund has been forced out of the club. I get it. From a financial perspective, am I happy about it? No. Stephanie, welcome Stephanie, says deadline day is going to be very busy for United exits. I agree with you. I think for me, these players should have been gone right now. I think we've done this on purpose. What I think we've done, I think we've been very, very clever here. And this is probably a conspiracy theory. We've let this... I think we've planned this very, very well. I think we've been very lucky in the players that we signed, but I think we've been very fortunate in what we've done here. I think that this has played into our hands. I think that we have basically taken this window and seen an opportunity. We know we need to sign a centre midfielder, but we can't. We know we're not going to sell these players, or all of these players are going to go out on loan with money coming in next season. And this is why when Ornstein said we're not going to sign, probably not going to sign any more players, we'll push it for next season. I think we've played this well. I think we've done this up until the end of the window, knowing that we're not going to have enough time to get a centre midfielder in. And I think Amarin already knows this. I think he's been pushing, but I genuinely believe that that's what we've done. And if we have, then we've just got to get on board with it. It's not something that I agree with. It's not something that I think is right. But that's my humble opinion on it. Maybe right now I think it could be the disappointment of yet another window, whereby I really do think that we have been hoodwinked slightly. There is investment in this squad. Amin has had to have investment in this squad after finishing 15th in the season. So Højlund going to Napoli for me, I think is a good it's a good deal for him. Napoli as well. You know, I think this will be a good deal. Anybody hoping that this transfer is going to be a just a loan? It's not going to be. It's going to be a permanent loan. It's going to be an obligation to buy. And you know, in my opinion, good luck to him. He's one of the players that I really hope that he would stay. But I think sadly, he's going to go on a permanent deal. So I wish him well. I agree with the chat. I think he's going to go very, very soon. He's going to be gone before the end of the window, probably maybe next week. He can't compete. Morning, JB and all. Good morning, my friend. Have enough pennies and turns into serious cash at the end of the day. I hope you guys are doing well. It's nice and sunny day outside. Hoping we get a here we go for Lammens today. Yeah, agree with you. Absolutely agree, Joel, on that one. So Hojlund for me, it's a bit of a disappointing one for me on the basis that I wanted him to stay. I think, as we've spoken about here many, many times, I think we've done him a disservice. I think he needed to come in at a different time when Zlatan was here. I know that was years and years ago, but I think we failed him as much as you could probably argue that the talent maybe of what we needed isn't there. Now Antony as well. So as Joel has mentioned, what have you said in the chat? Yeah, so there's 3 offers. Betis, Brighton have come in for him, and a Turkish team. Now Antony for me, I tell you where I am with Antony. So he's been put into this bomb squad. We've got Scott says, I don't count loan deals when we buy players for 60 plus. Yes, we had the money, but we miss out on them. Scott, I'm with you on that one. You know, as it was shown, loans with an obligation to buy don't always mean loans with an obligation to buy, because you look at what happened with the Sancho stuff, right? So in my opinion, you know, you can obviously have your own on this one, but loans for me right now don't mean that we can buy players. You know, you look at Liverpool, you look at City, you look at Arsenal, you look at these players, what they're doing. I get this is not Ineos's fault. They didn't sign these players, right? I get that. But my counter argument to that will always be, when you buy a business, when you buy into something, you buy all of the debt, you buy all of the problems, and if you did a review, a strategic review of a football club, you should know the end-to-end. You should know the profile of the players. You should know, you know, what loans, what the players are like. You know, I get that they didn't buy the players, but they should have known in that strategic review about what would happen with these players. So as much as no, they're not directly at fault, in my opinion, it is a joint venture. They are responsible for keeping the Glazers in charge. They've taken their responsibility, so therefore it's their responsibility to get rid of these players, and they found that very, very quickly that they cannot sell these players. So therefore it is a failure, as much as it wasn't their original fault. They still bought into the club. They still must have known about players, the profile of the players, from the managers, from people around the club, and this is where we are. So Antony for me had my respect. He got himself a loan deal, went and played football. We are this community now. Thank you, Scott. He's coming up for 9,000 on the journey to 10,000, and this is directly responsible for you guys. This is all thanks to the people that come on here, the people that like the channel, you know, the people that watch us. You know, this is all down to you guys. You know, it's a massive thank you for me. We're really close to 9,000, on the way to 10,000. So you know that would be unbelievable, really, to me. So that's a massive thank you. So Antony, to me, where I am on him is, you know, I did have a lot of respect at the time for him. I thought his loan move was great. He ended up, and value possibly was going to be there, right? And then we learned why Amarin didn't want him in the squad. We learned why Ten Hag didn't want him in the squad, because he's just like, I'm the most disappointed with him because of what he did for his career. I thought he took his own career by the horns and said, look, I'm basically gonna own my career. I'm gonna go somewhere. I'm gonna take a loan and I'm gonna look to get into this World Cup squad. Respect for that. But he's come back and now he's kicking and screaming like a child because he wants to go back to the club that loved him, for the club that he went to. But sadly, it's a club that can't afford you. It's a club that can't pay your wages. It's a club that can't pay what you're worth. So Antony, therefore, mate, you don't go. You can kick and scream and moan and whinge, and fine. It's probably going to end up. He's like a little child having a tantrum, which in my opinion makes him pathetic. And he's going to moan, kick and scream until he gets his way. And I think ultimately with him, we're going to be forced. We're going to be forced yet again to we're going to be held to ransom by Antony because he needs to go. And again, I'm of the opinion that what do we do in this circumstance? And I put this out to the chat because I want to know what you guys think about this. What would you do with Antony? They can't afford his wages. They can't afford to pay us the money. So what would you do in the chat? Now, the naughty step is getting bigger. Exactly. And that's exactly what it is. It's basically the children who misbehave at the back of the class, right? Antony's gone from a laughing stock to get into a Conference League final or Europa League final? Sorry, a Conference League final. Playing extremely well, raising his stock, coming back, and because he can't get his own way, they are a good club, but surely his ambition should be now to go to a bigger club again. But because he wants to go back to somewhere that he liked, he's kicking and screaming. Well, feel free to take a pay cut, number one, but they can't afford you. So the respect that I had for this player has now been destroyed on the basis because of the behaviour, and he's obviously copying his friends. He knows he's in like the bomb squad, and I just don't get it. So there's as we've already said in this chat, so Besiktas I think are the club that are looking at him in the Turkish league. I personally think if the realism here has to hit. So this is where I'm at on this whole thing. So Joe says Antony's on the same level as Sancho. The guy's turned down over 10 clubs this summer. Exactly that. And what I think these players are, and we can bring Sancho into this as well, right? Is that Sancho's agents, and I've said this now on quite a few shows, is that Sancho, for me, his team, his agents are playing one of the best cat and mouse games I've ever seen. Putting it out there that he wants to leave, putting it out there that he wants to go, getting clubs interested in him. Clubs are willing to pay us money. We are willing to pay. I just give you a shout on the United Stand JB. Thanks, Scott, mate. That is an absolute. That's very kind, sir. No, I really, Scott. The fact that people like you come on here and are willing to shout me out and this community out. Yes, I love the shout out and I think it's great. But giving this community that, my friend, I think is amazing. And I thank you because I think you guys on here deserve that. I think you guys in this chat deserves an audience on here. It's just, I love this community. You guys are just amazing, and I hope one day that we can get anywhere near those sorts of figures, and it just means that I can do more stuff and try and entertain you guys a little bit more. So Scott, that is amazing, buddy, and I thank you a lot on that one. So Sancho, for me, let's bring him in. Let's bring him into this position as well, right? And I think the chat, I think Jar, I think you are 100% spot on with this one, right? Is that Antony had my respect. You know, what I liked about what he did was he controlled the situation. So unlike a Sancho who went to Chelsea, you know, did a couple of bits and pieces, never really did a lot. You could argue he got to a Conference League final, he scored in that, fine. You can sort of like argue that. And even at that point, Chelsea wanted to give him a contract. He turns that down. All right. Red flag number one. You've got Roma, Juventus. You know, clubs wanting to give us money for him, turns them down. Where we are with Sancho right now, and I think we really need to have a realistic conversation about this one, is that Sancho, is it a failure of Ineos? No. They have put themselves in a situation here, but Sancho is not going to go. There is no way. Creating a community is awesome, and because United is even better. Exactly, G Wolf. Exactly, my friend. Sancho is not going to go. You know, Sancho for me is going to end up probably being one of the worst signings we've ever made, on the basis that we can't get rid of this guy. He is a mercenary through and through. He can't even, as one last act of respect for the club, respect for the history of the club, respect for the fans that have adored him, respect for his fellow players, respect for the people who should have his back, and then ultimately respect for himself, to say, look, I've earned millions and millions and millions of pounds. I'm going to still earn millions and millions and millions of pounds. Why can't I just do this last thing for players and the clubs and just go away? United are going to literally pay me off for a year, wipe the slate clean, and then they also get some money. Sancho doesn't want to do that. What Sancho is going to do, he's going to run his contract down, going to take all of the money that he can, and then when he leaves next year, somebody will give him 20 million. Somebody will give him 15 million, put it in his pocket, and he'll go away. And that's what's going to happen. We cannot get rid of Sancho. Sancho has no ambition. He has no ambition to get back into the England squad. That could be a carrot to some place. He doesn't even have that respect for his own career to play for England in a World Cup year. He knows he's nowhere near that. So Sancho's got no incentive to leave. He's got no incentive to do the right thing. So as far as I'm concerned, Sancho is here. If United, if the football side can do something to get rid of him, I will big them up. I will absolutely big them up, because I think that will be one of their greatest successes of this window, if they get rid of that player. So Sancho, for me, as of here and now, is one of the worst players we've ever had, one of the biggest mercenary players that we've ever had. And if we can get rid of him, I will absolutely big up Ineos, because I think this will be one of the greatest achievements to get rid of this sort of player. Antony's on the same level as Sancho. This guy exactly. Where we Scott says there are talks that Garnacho to Chelsea might end up falling through if he can't come to a price. Hopefully Sancho doesn't go, so he cleans up the box and the first plays boots as punishment for not leaving. Sanchez was worse than Sancho. Sanchez was pretty bad. But I don't think... The reason why Sanchez wasn't as bad for me is because I don't think Sanchez actually hated the club. I don't think Sanchez actually hated the fan base. I think that Sancho abjectly despises this club. I think he despises us as fans. He despises everything that makes this club great. Scott, do you know what, Scott? I don't... Again... I'd probably say Sanchez, in terms of a deal, was the worst deal. And when we were looking at plays, Scott, I think I agree with you on that one. He absolutely absolutely just despise this club as well. So I think you're right. I think those two players for me probably are quite equal. Mark Harris in the chat, legend of the chat, Mark. Waiting for Amron to blame the grass at Craven Cottage or the meat pies were off Shesko. Not starting tomfoolery. I remember when Fergie blamed the grey kit for Southampton. I think when we lost 6-3, 6-2. I remember when he came up with that excuse. I mean, that I had that grey kit. Now, obviously, with time, it's become like a classic kit. But yeah, Amron, to be fair to him, wouldn't be alone if he blamed the grass at Craven Cottage. Mark, you really do. You do make me laugh, my friend. So, Antony, for me, I think we're probably going to end up. So, this is where I'm at on Sancho and Antony, and the end game for those two. So, part of me, I'd love to let Antony rot. You know, Sancho, let him rot as well. You know, the Garnacho stuff as well. I'd love to let him rot, but sadly, we can't let them all rot. You know, who for me would probably be the one that you make an example of. So for me, the Garnacho would be the one that I would put to the side. Now, Antony is the one for me where we need to not make a book loss. So the Garnacho thing, because he's pure, because the money in will, you know, it's just going to be pure cash. He's the one for me that I would just go, look, if you don't get a move, you are still young. You're going to impact your career. We're going to make you stay. Okay, he'd be the one. Antony, I almost think that we need as much as we need to make an example, and as I say, the optics on this needs to be better. We need to be, as a brand, be seen to be, you know, doing good stuff on and off the pitch, and also as the sell and the buy phase of these players. I think Antony, we just need to get rid of again. You know, I want him to go for a good price, but if it means that he goes, we'll get his wages paid for another year, and then we kick it down the road again. Let's just get him gone. I'm not happy about that. We can't keep having these players on the books. We can't keep paying these players out. Get him gone. You know, even if we pay 50 grand towards his wages, I'm not happy. But let's just get him gone for another year. Maybe he has another good year. Maybe we can do something around an obligation to buy, but we need to do that. So Jill says, getting my new channel up and running. Feel free to stick that in the chat, my friend. You know, happy to support a fellow person on here as well, my friend. So Garnacho, where are we with Garnacho? Now Agent Scott has come on here as well and basically said that the talks with him and the deal might end up falling through if we can't come and settle on a price. Now, Scott, I don't see how we settle on a price here. And I'll go over what I said again last night. And I apologise if I'm repeating myself on this one again. So Garnacho, for me, I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow as well, guys. So for me, this is where I'm at on him, is that we have to be really exactly. It was a red flag that Antony did the same at Ajax. Exactly, Scott. You know, and when you look at Isak now as well, the moment that players do that, I'm not comfortable. You know, I'm not comfortable as a supporter of a club where you go and get a player, and what that player is prepared to do is basically go on strike, or a player is prepared to, you know, besmirch the name of their club. You know, is willing to basically do whatever they can to get out of that club to come to you. That for me is a no. I want players who are respectful, who do things in the correct way. Now, you're going to have fans who use that as banter, who use that as a tool to whip another club that they've taken him from. But he's eventually going to do that to you. So for me, Isak, I would stay well clear of that player, and he's going to end up damaging his career. Now, Antony, as you just said there, I think it's a really fair point to make. We should have seen it coming. We overpaid for this player. You could probably argue now that the more that Antony starts to create more issues and refuses to go, and the money that's paid, you could now argue, is he as bad as Sancho? Is he up for one of the worst signings that we've ever made? It's going that way as well. You know, we've accumulated these mercenary, low mentality, low IQ, basically baby players, and I wouldn't even call these kids. You know, my kids would never act in this way. You know, for fear, of course. No, I'm kidding, but you know, they wouldn't even act like. So I it just baffles me. It really does. Stephanie says, I wouldn't trust Sancho to clean the bogs. No obligation to unblock. I love that. Use Sancho as the plunger. I love it completely. So the Garnacho stuff for me now is, I don't see how we get this deal done. So Cole Palmer last night, if you watched the Chelsea game last night, that's why I'm glad we didn't get Gyökeres. Me says, I'm going to laugh so hard at Garnacho when he sat on the Chelsea bench and can't stop because Gittins, Neto and Estefo are all ahead of him. You could use him as a toilet brush. Emmy, yes. Let's get him there first. So Cole Palmer was injured, but looking at that Chelsea, I wasn't impressed with the Chelsea. Bobby, legend of the chat, welcome, my friend. Now, I wasn't impressed with the Chelsea back four, right? I think Chelsea have got a lot of work to do there. I thought West Ham were abjectly awful. West Ham were absolutely terrible. Tulip Plays is in the chat. How you doing? I hope you're doing really, really well today. So West Ham, for me, you know, we watched the game last night, right? And the reason why I watched it, because I wanted to see, and I might do the Arsenal game today. I'm not sure yet, but abjectly terrible, right? So it's really important for me to watch that game because, as far as I'm concerned, it's really good at this point to see the kind of teams around us and see how they develop into the season. Now, Chelsea at the moment, for me, Sky Sports and everyone else in TalkSport were saying, you know, based on that performance last night, Chelsea should be talked about for winning the league, you know, being in the top three. What are we saying in the chat? Welcome. Yeah, Bobby, road to 9k, mate. We're nearly there, buddy. Smash the like and subscribe. Literally cost you nothing at all. And I'll get into the chat. This is what I'll always say, is that I'm not a dictator of the chat. You know, this chat, I cannot express to you, and the chat will back me up hopefully on this one here, is that this chat is some of the best chat. Sorry guys, just checking. I'll send something. Is that this chat on here is some of the most intelligent, logical, and respectful chat. We don't always agree on different stuff, right? We don't always agree on the same thing. I just forgot. Emmy, no problem at all, my friend. On here, we've been talking about Lammens, we've been talking about Stiller, we've been talking about Agume, we've been talking about Shesko, we've been talking about so many different players, and we logically chat about it. We don't always agree, we disagree, but it's always done in a really respectful way. We even get other clubs coming into our chat because they don't have anything as good as this yet, right? And between us all, we basically predict, and we pretty much get the majority of things right. You know, either I get something right. So, for example, Shesko, we were spot on Shesko when even all the bigger channels were still clickbaiting it up, saying, "Oh, we might not get Šeško. We will get Šeško. We won't get Šeško." We were consistent. We were on it. We were right. We followed the timeline. And Šeško, I'm giving us Šeško because we were spot on that. The Belieber stuff, ultimately, I got that one wrong in terms of, from a logical perspective. I said the reasons why we would get him. Some of the chat were just like, no, we're not going to get him. The chat was right on that one. Lammens, we've been talking about Lammens. Lammens for me, on here, we've been talking about Lammens for the longest time, and we've all said we're probably going to get him. And again, we were correct on that one. We've been talking about that for such a long time, and we were all over that one. So again, another win for us. So when we talk about these players and we talk about this, we tend to get this. We tend to get this stuff right. So Garnacho for me, and we're talking about the Chelsea game, right? And Chelsea for me last night, was Chile saying, beating West Ham is no real measure. Saying that they did the double over us last season, that's true. That is true. So if Garnacho goes to Chelsea. And the reason why I'm starting to doubt the deal myself is because I don't see where he plays. Now their front three, their front four. That does concern me. They are a really good outfit. You've got João Pedro, Neto. You've got that young kid. Is it Esteval? Those guys for me. Cole Palmer. I don't see where he fits into that squad. Now, the only thing that I can think about why they're pushing so hard for this deal is because they won him at a low price. This is why they've lowballed us. The only reason why they won him is because I think they think that in maybe 2 to 3 years' time, he's going to be worth like 100 million. They're going to get him because what they do very well is they accumulate these young players. He is only 21, and then they sell them high. If they can't get this deal for 25 to 35 million, they're going to walk away from this deal. That is what they're going to do. They're going to walk away from this deal because I think ultimately Chelsea don't want him because he's such a great player. I think Chelsea want him because I think that they see him as profit. If I was in his position right now, the embarrassment for me of being valued so low and being kicked out, because that's what's happened. He's been kicked out of this club. And even the club who want you are valuing you at £25 million when you've got players around you going for more than that. So I think potentially that he either stays or goes out on loan. The Chelsea stuff for me, and one of the big things for me on this as well is that it's the optics for me and the brand, right? United are all about the brand. So can you imagine, as a business, you've got an asset that's worth 50 million. Somebody comes in and offers you 10 million without any real reason, and you sell it for 10 million. How bad does that make you look? So I think for all sorts of reasons, I think for reputational wise, I think for squad, I think for internal confidence, I think as a footballing brand, we cannot be seen to be selling our stars to £25 million to a rival club. So what I would do in that scenario, if we cannot agree a deal for 40 plus, I think we keep him here. We let him rot, and that shows a message not only to Chelsea, it shows a message to the rest of the club, it shows a message to the rest of the world that we will not be taken. We don't necessarily need the money, and there are some things more important. The values that we hold are much more important than selling profit for 25 million. He'll still be worth the same next season. If you put him in under 21s, you basically don't let him play for a year, he'll still be worth the next season. I think, to me, as an exercise, that is more of a value in terms of us as a club and what we're trying to do, rather than sell him to a rival. If we sell him to Chelsea for 25 mil, then we're in trouble. It's worse than we thought, because if we are selling him because we need 25 million, then it is worse than I thought. So I think we need to keep an eye on this one because it will tell you a lot about the club. Tulip Play says top 4 was wrapped up before a ball was kicked. The 5th spot should be a target. Aim high and worst you finish in the Europa. We need a CM to complete our lineup. I don't disagree, Tulip. Let's not sleep on Chelsea though. I think they'll grow into it. Newcastle there as well. You know they're signing players. You know they're a bit more of an established team. I don't think we're going to get a CM. I think Lammens will be our last signing, and I think a CM will as David Ornstein said weeks and weeks ago, I think we kick that to next season. That's what I think we'll do with that one. But hopefully I'm wrong. Have you read the comparison stats between Lammens and all the other goalkeepers? Lammens beats them all. Only downside to him is that he was in the Belgian league, and I don't watch that. But look where we got Schmeichel from and Vidic. Exactly. You know, I think Lammens. I think we need to mean business with Lammens. I think that if he's going to be our number one, we play him as our number one. You know, 23 years old, you know, 6'4", really good frame. You know, he's played 53 games, I think, in the Belgian league. You know, he's played in the Champions League as well. I like him. I like his stats. You know, I personally I'd bring him into the club and I'd stick him in as number one because I think for me, if you don't, you're almost not instilling confidence in that back three, that back five. I think what we need to do is be very confident with him and go, look, instill confidence in him, instill confidence in that back three and say, look, he is the guy. He's going, we feel so confident with him, he's going to go back in, and that will give him the confidence, that will give the back three the confidence, and that's what we need to do with this keeper, is back him as much as we possibly can. He's going to make mistakes, of course he does, and will, but we need to bring him in. He goes straight into that team and shows us why he's going to be our number one. Lammens is top 1% for claiming crosses, shot stopping, which is fantastic, only 22. 17 mil is a bargain. Tulip, I think it could end up being one of the biggest bargains that we've done, and again that will be a tick for Ineos for me. What we need is a Park type player, an engine in the CM who can break up play and move the ball around and make plays happen. I agree, I'd love a Park again, mate. I'd be happy with 35 million, then 50 million in add-ons and perform. Exactly, Emmy. If that's what it takes, then that is what we need to do. But there does come a point whereby the value becomes so low that we actually damage ourselves more than receiving £25 million. What we got? We are missing someone like him. I agree. Camavinga, Wharton, Belieber all fit that bill for me, Scott. Unless we do 35 plus 25% sell-on clause. Ronin, is it me or anyone else? What happened to Malacia? Not a single news rumour on him leaving. So Malacia was apparently Celtic were looking at him. Roma were looking at him. Malacia for me, yeah. I mean, you know, he needs to go, but Malacia for me, you know, I think he may just go and we'll hardly even hear about him going. You know, he's one of the ones that we need to mention as well. Injury prone, very, very injury prone player. I've heard Celtic didn't want him anymore. Roma, he's been mentioned about going there as well. So I sort of think now that Malacia will go, but it's literally going to be for peanuts. Scott Bramwell, Belieber for me is long gone. We missed him. I agree, Scott. I think Belieber's done. Unless we get into the Champions League, but even then there'll be so much competition. Can we win that race? I don't think we do. So I think Belieber for me is an opportunity that I don't think we were ever seriously in for. If you're going off of £55 million and you're not a serious club. The only thing I've seen is that Roma wanted him. Yeah, exactly. Are we? We could have loaned Polina. Exactly. Lammens comes in and starts. I hope so. They were willing to spend up to 90 mil for Believers. So the money is there. Get a CM, not just a keeper. we offered 55 mil. Exactly. Scott, I think I'm with you on that one, mate. I think we did offer 55 million. I think that it's embarrassing. Obviously we're never, they're never going to come out and confirm what the offer was, but we will learn that. But 55 million for me, if that gets confirmed, then for me we were never seriously in, and we wasted 2.5 weeks, and that's scary for me. Put 2 million bid in for Malacia, but we want 5. He's not worth 50p. I agree with you. I think that obviously we've got to have value for players, but Malacia, whether he stays or goes, I really don't care. Who's that CM from Seville? I've not watched him. Anyone know if he's any good? Yeah, Agume. Didn't we offer Collian 55 million and probably a bag of crisps and some Bitcoin as well? I think, ME. You will see 2 players, Son, Deadlon Day, Agume and Lammens. I hope you're right on that, G-Wolf. I think Agume for me, and let me tell you something that I've learned recently, and you may have heard me talk about this as well, and I'll repeat it again, is that in Amorim, in his system, we need to stop thinking about, we don't have to, of course you don't, but in Amorim's, the way that he plays his CMs are a bit like wingers. And what I mean by that is they play in like a corridor, right? So imagine you've got your box-to-box, line. And those CMs, their job, irrespective of what their specialism is, so for example, if they're a ball carrier, passer, progressor, whether they're a ball carrier but they're more of a tackler, they're more of an intercept sort of player. What Amorim wants, first and foremost in his players, is high energy, high engine midfield players that run up and down. So instead of running up and down the wing, they run up and down that box-to-box area. So you've got your CMs and they both go up, they both come down, but on the attack they support. Maybe one stays back, maybe one goes forward. Depending on the attack, they both go forward. That allows the centre-backs to be pushed up, or even in times where, say, like a Euro pushes up because he's very, very good on the ball. The CMs or one CM will come back and help defend. But the most important thing for him is that both CMs go forward and come back. Yes, they can tackle a bit. Yes, they can pass a bit. But right now, the most important thing for him is that they get up and down that pitch. So it doesn't really necessarily matter about a number 8 or a number 6 type of role. I think in time, you probably would go with more of a defensive ball carrier, tackler, interceptor, and then you'd maybe have more of that sort of Tony Cruz type, more of that passer, more of that ball carrier, but more of an offensive style. But what is really consistent in his system is they both have to get back, they both have to defend, they both have to get numbers back, and they both have to support the attackers as well. So when we are looking at midfielders, I think you can almost take your pick. So Stiller, yeah, he's not more of a defensive minded, he's more of a Tony Cruz type. But the most important for me, or the most important for him, is an engine. I'm going to sneeze. Yeah, I'm going to sneeze. No, so I'm going to sneeze. Good, it's gone. So that is what he wants in his system. So for me, I think while this system is still new, and he doesn't have necessarily the players that he wants to, I would rather go for an Agume, more of a defensive kind of high tackling midfielder. But there is now this new thing that basically whereby he wants more of an engine room of these midfielders that go up and down, as opposed to specific roles like a CM or like a more of a defensive CM. Chip Play says he completed his first season as first choice keeper. We went public with believers saying we wanted him, and personal terms agreed, but 55 million, which was a joke of an offer. Exactly. I've only read stats; they are really amazing. We need Roy Keane, yeah, we do. Every player leaving the club helps us save money through reduced wages. Hopefully, we can bring in a midfielder, hoping for, I believe, a bomber. Ronnie, my friend, I think we all do. I still live in hope. I still live in hope, but pretty much, that's been already put to bed by Fabrizio. That's already been put to bed by Ornstein. I just don't see. I just don't see it. I just don't see it happening. I think that we can live in hope, live in dream, but I just don't think that happens, my friend. This is why Mainu isn't playing. He's slow off the ball. His position can be calm. Close control is top notch, but unfortunately, he's not a DM. And this is. I wonder if this is the point with Mainu at the moment, is that if you look at Mainu, he's carrying a lot of muscle right now. And that's the problem, is when you're a young player like him, being a guy, playing sport, and I play sport quite a bit, I sort of run quite a bit. I go to the gym, and I can only tell you from my experience, right? So I used to go to the gym quite a lot. I've been going to the gym on and off for 20 odd years, right? Now I've been bigger, I've been smaller. Now when you're slightly bigger, and the muscle that you put on, right, it's more difficult to run and get your body about the place, right? Then I started to run, and then I found that the lighter that you are, the less muscle mass that you have, the better you can run and the longer you can run for, but you're not as strong. So it's almost like you need a balance between strength and a balance between being able to run, stamina, and that's where I think Mainu is at. Imagine you're 18 years old. You get your big boy body, and then you obviously start to build up. He's quite a big guy. Your muscles grow, your tendons stretch, and then you finally finish. Probably you don't grow anymore when you're about 18 to 21, I think it is. You stop when you're 18 with height, and then when you're 21, that's when you sort of start to, like, your body and like your muscles and that kind of stuff are kind of where they're supposed to be. Now, Mainu's still going through that. So you think now his muscles and his legs have come through and grown, he can now finally start to develop his physical game. And I think at the moment, what was really difficult for him last season is when he grew into his body, he was probably a bit slower because, you think about it, that bulk through no fault of his own, I can imagine Mainu is the type of player that he basically just looks at a weight and he gets bigger. So I think it's for him, it's trying to basically slim down, but at the same time, trying to slim down, but also trying to keep some mass for the Premier League. So I think with Mainu, what we're going to see over the next year is we're going to see a development of his game. I think he'll slim down. I think he'll get better. I think he'll get quicker, but I think it's going to take him probably another season or two to get into that sort of physical shape. He's obviously a fit kid, but I think he's going to take him a while to find that balance between athleticism, with his stamina and his size. And I think it's going to take him a little bit of time to get to basically get his body into a kind of more of a stable state for him to play that CM role. Have a little look. What I really need. Brighton scouts, who are they? They uncovered some amazing players. Exactly. Can we take a moment to step away from transfers and appreciate how Yoro has suddenly turned into an absolute beast in defence since pre-season? Who's taught him that ball control too? Emmy, yeah, I think Yoro has. One of the things I will say is that's a very plus point for me. Yoro is a generational talent. I truly believe that Yoro is an absolute beast. I think he's always, if you watched him early doors, you could see that he sort of had that about him. but he is majestic. He is one of those players that I'm hoping that we can get him to sign another contract in the next year or two. But you know that Real Madrid at some point are going to come in and get him on a free. Unless we can do something, unless we can improve as a team, and he loves this club, which I'm hoping that he will and does. You know, he's going to be one of the successes of our club, and obviously then what happens is that, you know, then they tend to leave, right? So Euro for me are 100% correct. I think De Ligt for me is a fantastic player as well. Dorgu, I think for me has been wonderful as well, and I'm hoping that he can continue with that as well. So Gabriel, I think it is, 14 years old, playing with the first team. Imagine he plays this season. You know, I'd play him in the early. You know, we've got a Grimsby game coming up. You know, I'd play him in that. You know, I'd love to see him in one of those games, but I don't think he can play, can he? Because I think he's too young. I think he needs to be 15 and something. So I think he's a little bit too young, but I'd love him to play. I think he stays because he appreciates that, given his start to his life and turned into the next Rio. Yes, I hope. Yeah, I really do hope that he does stay. You know, I like the player a lot. I think he's going to be £100 million player easily. I just hope that we can keep him. I hope that we can get some value for him, you know, because ultimately, you know, when you put in all of the hard work on these young players, you know, I just really hope that he's not going to be like, you know, like a Trent, for example, or an Alaba, or these players that go to Madrid on a free. I'm hoping that he just stays here for the next 10 years, because I think he's a wonderful player. I like him. I like him a lot. With that said, I'm gonna look to go. I'm just gonna have a little look to see if anything's going on as we're talking. JJ's like Rooney, talent beyond his years. Also, Heaven will be a star for 1 million. Yeah, I like Heaven as well. I think he's a very, very good player. Now, he's got that typical innocence of youth in terms of how he plays sometimes, but I really do think he's a great player. Just having a little check through Fabrizio through X before I go to see what's going on. Antony still talking crap on that. Yeah, nothing new. Ben Jacobs, let's see what he's saying. Ben Jacobs, no, nothing new on that at the moment. Florian Plettenberg, no, not really saying too much on that one either. Also, Kai Rooney as well. Yeah, I mean, I think the future is looking bright for this club, but you know, we need to have something here and now. And you know, I will give Ineos, the football side, credit for that, is, you know, for the future, and to big up to Joel as well in the chat, because you know this is his whole thing as well. You know that we are looking good for the future, and I think, you know, spot on. You know, I think we do have to think about the future as much as we do think about, you know, the present as well. So you know, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, got to go catch you all later. Don't forget to smack. Exactly, if you knew exactly, get this channel out there, share as much as we possibly can. So guys, it's been an hour and 23 minutes. As always, it's a pleasure. I don't know where the time goes. I might do a watch along. I'm not sure yet. Depends on what time the game's on today. I might do the Arsenal watch along. I don't know. I'm intrigued. I'm only intrigued to see how they play in their second game. So I'll look at Leeds today at 5:30. I might do a watch along for that one. Again, I think it's really important for me to keep an eye on what the rivals are doing this season. And Gyökeres, I want to give him some banter as well. So, guys, thank you for watching. As I'll always say on here at the end of a show, it's really important for me to acknowledge the chat. You know, without this chat and this community, this channel is basically just me talking at myself about something that I love, and it means so much to me to be able to share something I've loved for 38 years of my life, coming up for 39 years. Really, really important to me. And one thing in life is that you can't buy time. You can buy fast cars, you can buy massive houses, but you can't buy time. That's the one thing in life that you can never get back, is time. And the fact that you choose to spend that on this channel, you spend it with me, whether it's a second, a minute, an hour, you give me your time, and it blows my mind away. It absolutely that's a good point, Joe, actually. And it blows my mind that you guys come on here with each other, you interact with each other. This community has brought people together. It's brought me to you, it's brought you guys to me, and we talk about things that that I love, and we do it together. And I can only thank you for that. It genuinely means so much to me. So thank you to Joel, to G Wolf, Scott, Agent Scott, you can't compete. Emmy, thank you so much for being here. You've got Tulip Plays as always. Ronin's in the chat as well. We've got, can read through, guys, there's so many of you now. Tulip, we've got Stephanie as well in here as well. Bobby, legend of the chat, pops in and says hi. We've got Mark, of course. Mark is a legend. Who else we got in here as well? Hopefully I'll try and mention everybody. Dehexion, who's in here quite a bit as well. Ifrain as well. Weakfoot. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Another great show. I would always do this show even if there was just one person talking to me. I live in a house of girls, and none of them really like football, really, apart from my second eldest. So I don't get to do this much, and this is therapy for me. This is a passion of mine, and to share it with such an amazing, intelligent community is an absolute joy for me. So I would have a good rest of your day. I will be back on, as always, wherever I am, around the house, outside. I will jump back on if anything does break. I'll see what games are on, and then I might do it. I am going to go for a run now. What tends to happen is when I go for a run, I come back, stuff happens. So I'm going to go out for a bit, and then I'll come back, and then if anything breaks, I'll be back on with you guys. Have a good rest of your day, morning, afternoon, evening, and I will catch you very, very soon. Take care.